All right, let's jump right in. We're about to get into the heart of one of the most intense and ancient poems you'll ever come across, David's Song of Deliverance from 2 Samuel 22. And trust me, this is no simple little hymn. It's a full-blown epic. We're talking desperation, a thundering divine rescue, and pure, triumphant praise.
Everything, and I mean everything, in this song hangs on this one single powerful idea. This metaphor, the rock, it's the foundation for all of it. It's about having something unshakable when your world is pure chaos, a fortress when you're under attack, and a deliverer when you feel like all hope is completely gone. We're going to see this theme pop up again and again.
So here's our game plan. We're going to break this down into 4 parts. First, we'll start with David's cry from the absolute depths of despair. Then we'll get to witness the thundering, almost cosmic response to that cry. After that, we'll dig into the why, the foundation of faith behind the rescue. And to wrap it all up, we'll see how this whole experience transforms into an amazing song of victory.
Okay, so our story kicks off in a place of total desperation. You know, the kind of place where you need a rock just to hang on. This first part really sets the stage, painting a picture of someone who is at their absolute breaking point.
You really got to appreciate the imagery here. This isn't just saying, I was in danger. The language is so visceral. It's the feeling of drowning, of being physically dragged under by the currents of death itself. It's this all-encompassing, terrifying threat.
And see how it intensifies? It's not just passive waves anymore. Now we have torrents. We're talking active, destructive floods just crashing down. The feeling is one of being completely powerless, totally and utterly overwhelmed by forces you have zero control over.
And here, the metaphor shifts, which is brilliant. We go from drowning to being hunted. A snare is a trap, right? So now death isn't just some chaotic force. It's like an intelligent hunter, and David feels like he's caught. The walls are just closing in. There's no way out.
So the big question is, what do you do when you're trapped and you're drowning? Well, there's only one thing left, and this isn't some polite, quiet prayer. This is a raw, desperate scream for help. And the poem is crystal clear. That cry from the edge of annihilation travels all the way to the heavens. And it's heard. This is the turning point of the whole story.
And now for Act 2. The response is, well, let's just say it's anything but subtle. We're shifting gears from this quiet, personal despair to earth-shattering power. Think of it like a full-blown cinematic intervention.
The response doesn't start with a whisper. Nope. It starts with a universal cataclysm. The very fabric of reality, the earth, the foundations of the heavens, it all starts to shake. This isn't just some local event. The entire cosmos is reacting in anger to what's happening to David. And then the poem uses this incredibly vivid, almost monstrous imagery to describe this divine power. It's portrayed as this being of immense fiery wrath, smoke, consuming fire, burning coals. This is just raw, unstoppable force being unleashed on David's enemies.
Wow, this is the moment of pure awe. The barrier between the divine and the mortal is just torn open. This isn't some distant, hands-off intervention. This is a direct descent onto the battlefield. The rescuer is personally entering the fight with storm clouds underfoot.
The arrival itself is described with so much majesty and speed. To move on the wings of the wind. I mean, that implies a power that's totally one with the forces of nature. It's an image of effortless, breathtaking speed and authority, just sweeping onto the scene to turn the tide.
And here's the climax of the intervention, a full-on sensory assault. It's not just visual, it's auditory. You've got thunder from heaven, lightning bolts like arrows. It's a divine superstorm that completely disorients, scatters, and demolishes the enemy. The battle is over in an instant.
And I love this part because it shows the heart of the rescue. After all the cosmic warfare, the earth-shattering power, the fire and the thunder, the final act is incredibly personal. It's just a hand reaching down, taking hold, and physically pulling David out of those deep waters of death we saw at the very beginning.
So, that was an epic rescue, right? But why? Why did it happen? Was it just random luck? That brings us to our third section, which gets into the logic behind it all, the foundation of faith. Turns out it's not just about power, it's about relationship and righteousness.
Now, this part is absolutely crucial. In David's mind, this wasn't a lucky break. He sees a direct cause and effect thing going on here. He believes he was rescued because he stayed faithful, because he kept his hands clean. From his point of view, this divine intervention was actually earned through loyalty.
And what's so interesting here is how clearly the poem spells this principle out. It presents this kind of divine mirroring. To people who are faithful, God is faithful in return. But to those who are devious, well, God meets them on their own terms. It describes a world where your character really does determine your destiny.
And this brings us right back where we started. Full circle to our central idea. The rock isn't just a passive shield. It's the active foundation for this whole worldview. It represents the reliable, stable, predictable character of God who acts based on these principles of faithfulness. It is the ultimate source of security.
Okay, let's move on to our final section and see how this all wraps up. Because the story doesn't just end with David being saved, it ends with him being transformed. He goes from being the one who was rescued to being the empowered victor.
And the poem lays out a really clear path to victory. First, he's divinely armed for battle. With that strength, he's no longer being pursued, he becomes the pursuer who crushes his enemies. Then he humbles his adversaries, and finally, he's established as a leader. It's a complete 180 from where he started.
So the final outcome is just total victory. The guy who was drowning in the waves of death is now standing on solid ground, armed, exalted, and completely triumphant. And this is where the entire epic journey has been heading. The experience of being in the depths, the awe of the rescue, the empowerment of victory, it all culminates in this one final, explosive declaration of praise. The story's real purpose is found in this moment, reaffirming his faith in the rock, his savior.
So this ancient song of deliverance leaves us with a very modern question, doesn't it? David's story is all about finding an unshakable point of stability, a rock, in a completely chaotic world. So the question I'll leave you with is this: what is the rock in your own story?